Hey now, Adam.
Hey now, Sitch. What are we talking about here? What's going on?
So today we're watching a classic reaction of a reaction of a reaction content.
Nice. I love it.
So this is Sam Seder and company going after Tim Pool. Oh my gosh. Trying to start another conflict here. Because
that's like a regular thing for them. This is like
true.
20 of their videos a week, right?
That's true. So Tim was critical of the recent Marvels movie, specifically the Marvels movie, and how it's doing very poorly in the box office, and pointing to this, is this yet another example of somebody getting woke and going broke?
Right. That's a thing. I've heard that meme before.
You've heard that, okay.
I have,
You're
yeah.
familiar with that meme, okay.
Yes. Get
Right.
woke, go broke.
Right.
That happens. That's a thing.
So Sam is critical
Right.
of Tim invoking this for the Marvels movie, and very critical of Tim using the dreaded CM word.
Right.
Cultural Marxism.
Cultural Marxism.
Something
Okay.
you like to give me a lot of hassle for if I ever use that word.
Well, look, sometimes I feel like it's overused, but maybe this is appropriate. Cultural Marxism just means woke, right? That's basically what it means.
So, I mean, it's yes, the philosophy underlying what wokeness actually is. Yeah.
And Sam Seder's like, wait a second here. I got woke and I'm getting rich. So this can't be true, right? This has to be fake news.
There you go. That's a good
Right.
point. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's jump in. We're going to jump around this video a little bit. We're not going to watch the whole thing. So let's get into it.
So this is Sam Seder's channel.
Yes.
It is so fascinating to watch Tim Pool try and make his like sort of culture war argument based upon the box office of movies at this point. Like,
yeah.
How many times does this premise have to be disproved that there is some cultural shift happening by virtue of movie to movie that you perceive? Like, they think all movies are all woke.
It's all a referendum. And like, I don't understand how they can say, and he's about to, rip into the Marvels for not doing well at the box office. And yet they were bitching all summer about Barbie, which made $1 billion+ and talks about the patriarchy. That's like the central premise.
To be fair.
Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah, I
the
know.
central premise of Barbie is talking about the patriarchy. Eat
Right.
your heart out, people that I debated with that were saying Barbie wasn't a political movie.
Emma got it. Emma gets it.
So, but it is interesting that, so Sam's position, now Sam famously doesn't like track or follow anything of cultural relevance. Okay.
Right. Yes.
He actually talked about this later in this clip about how he like only watched Marvel's or Avengers Endgame because he has a son and he thought
Right.
the movie sucks. And it's like he seems completely detached from like anything, like any media, any TV, any movies. I think he even told us this when he was on our show. So I don't even know why how can he form an opinion about the relevancy of this from a cultural aspect if he doesn't follow any of this stuff in the first place? Seems
Because
ridiculous.
you don't have to. You don't have to follow the stuff to actually comment on it. That's the world we're living in. Sid.
Yeah.
You
And
can comment from a place of utter ignorance.
Okay.
And there's absolutely no downside. Look, the
Yes.
whole Majority Report show is a testament to this.
True. And it's funny because with this movie that just came out, the Marvels, and other movies that have come out and done poorly, very often if it's like a kind of a woke movie and it does bad, what do? They always run out, they blame the racists. They
Right.
blame the sexists. They blame the anti-woke backlash. That's actually what Tim did a video after this that they're reacting to. That was like people blaming the woke crowd or the anti-woke crowd for like the Marvels movie doing poorly. Okay.
Right.
So which is it? Are you saying that these movies have no reflection of the cultural aspects that are going on whatsoever? So everyone's saying that they're doing poorly because the evil anti-woke racists are out there. Is that all BS too? Or is that true? And only like the woke part is not true.
It doesn't have to make sense.
Oh, okay.
Sitch, this is a culture war.
And isn't that the same? Like, because when Barbie did well, there was so many woke people who like throwing themselves ticker tape parades saying, "Oh, this proves that wokeness is still, like going strong because Barbie did well."
Yeah, wokeness is king.
Yes.
Who knows?
Give you Tim Pool. Whoopsie.
The Marvels movie meltdown. Ladies and gentlemen, the MCU is dying. It may be dead. Man, a lot of people have told me that they stopped
30
watching after Avengers Endgame in 2019. But let me tell you this, get woke,
Pause it for
go
1
broke.
second. Listen, if you are in a position where a lot of people are telling you what they're doing with the MCU, then I suggest that maybe you should be spending your time in other circles.
All right. Well,
So Sam has just utter contempt for anyone who watches these movies, who has friends that watch these movies, that talks about these movies. And like, okay, listen, Sam, you don't have to watch Marvel movies. You don't have to like Avengers. You don't have to like nerd stuff. That's fine. But then just don't talk about it. And don't talk about like whether it's relevant or not to the political or cultural conversation at all. If you just have no interest in it.
Yeah, how can you even know if you don't really keep track?
Yeah. Like obviously, the types of movies and media that are coming out and are popular have some kind of reflection on the state of the mind of the culture that is producing them, right? And that is consuming that content.
Yes. Yeah, there's two conflicting ways of looking at it. From the conservative perspective, it's kind of a bottom-up process where the audience is deciding what they like and driving what movies are made. But the left does have this meme that they can manufacture consent, that they have this great power to move culture, that they can just kind of make a movie about anything they want and sell some idea to the population. I think it's somewhere in between. Obviously, you'd be a fool to think that movies don't have any sort of influence on people. Obviously, smoking was a huge thing in movies way back when, and I'm sure that made an influence on more people smoking, right? They saw big time celebrities that they admired and looked up to smoking. They're like, look, I want to be cool. I'll smoke too. So there is that going on, but I think the left thinks that power is infinite, and it's not. Like smoking is one thing, but if you wanted to convince the population to drink their own urine, like I don't think like that could be a thing, right? Like, you
don't think that would fly if all the big time actors and actresses started drinking their own urine?
Miss Marvel comes out and says, "Look, I've decided this new drinking my own urine thing. I save it up and I drink it." Look, I don't think that's going to be a big popular thing just because it's in a movie.
Listen,
some popular person does it, right? Look, am I wrong here?
If the next Marvel movie featured Brie Larson
drinking her own urine,
coming out on stage and drinking her own urine, okay, you're right. I don't think that would be very popular among like the general population, but
there is a certain subset of the population that would dig
audience that would just buy that content, okay, with the devotion you've never seen.
Look, I'm talking about actually.
Maybe that's how Disney can make up for the fact that their movies are flopping. They'll stop doing the broad appeal. They'll just go for really niche audiences.
Maybe. Look, we've talked a bunch about how AI, you're going to be able to make your own movies. Brie Larson drinking her own urine is going to be a movie. No. You know it is. Look, come on.
I didn't even think about that. That's awful.
But you understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying. So they are, the left very much, Disney in particular, I guess Marvel. Disney bought Marvel. So they're caught up in this idea that we're going to manufacture consent that everyone is going to be progressive. That's what they're trying to do.
Okay, so I guess we'll keep watching the video because that's the central thing that I guess we'll talk about, debate about, is how much of this is intentional, or is it even intentional or incidental?
Okay, interesting.
Don't care all that much about Marvel. Bear with me. This segment is not so I can break down the finer workings of a superhero movie. It's to talk about how they are destroying American culture, why they're doing it, and what is actually happening. It's quite simple, my friends. When you try to shift the culture instantly, it doesn't work. And that's what we're seeing. Activists and cultural Marxist revolutionaries in these industries, and there's two big factors here, because I don't want to bury the lead. One,
cultural Marxists over at
Marxist
Disney.
revolutionaries over, yes, at Disney. Boy, This is the way that we're going to do it. Listen, we can do good and do well by doing good. And that's how we put out these blockbuster movies.
Yeah, Bob,
well, okay, we can put a pin in the cultural Marxist conversation for a second, but it's bizarre to me that Sam is mocking that concept that he just laid out here. That, yeah, obviously there's people at Disney who rationalize themselves, who convince themselves that they're doing some great justice or great social service to the world by putting out a movie or a product. They think that's going to improve people's lives, not just through entertainment, but through social messaging.
Yeah. Yeah. Empower women. They want to entertain you and empower women.
And it's like, I mean, it's so like, that's what everyone, especially people who are making a lot of money, they very clearly want to rationalize that they're making money in a moral, ethical way that's helping people. So I don't know why Sam is like mocking that idea. Like, it's ridiculous that people involved at Disney or these projects would have that thing rolling around in their mind, whether Sam agrees with it or not.
Yeah, it is kind of odd that he's laughing at that. You'd think he'd want to run his company that way.
Yeah, or at least understand that that's how like everyone operates, or most people operate.
Is greenlighting the Communist Manifesto as a film coming up next year, 2025.
He's got this weird affectation these days.
I would tell if the cultural Marxists that are inside these operations are listening, I would just say, can you do something about how you are working with the Pentagon to the tune of billions of dollars in military equipment for filming these things?
Oh, you don't understand the long game. Go ahead.
Activists and cultural Marxist revolutionaries in these industries, and there's two big factors here, because I don't want to bury the lead. One, ideologically driven people who are like, I'm tired of white men. And two, people who are like, there's a bottom line advantage if we can market to more people, but it does not work. Here are the results.
What?
MCU posts lowest box office opening ever at $47 million. What went wrong? Now, you may be saying,
so that is pretty crazy. Lowest box office opening for any Marvel movie. Oof.
I mean, it's Captain Marvel. I mean,
well, okay. So, wait, hold on. Let's see if this is the intention.
This is just absurd.
Okay, so let's talk about the sort of like whether this is intentional or not. So, Tim, in this video, he's putting forward the argument, at least how it sounds like to me, he's putting forward the argument that there is some intention somewhere in Disney to intentionally change the culture, kind of what you were saying.
Right.
Intentionally like change the culture and to do it in a way that conforms with wokeness, aka cultural Marxism.
Right. Like there's a big table and a bunch of Marxists are sitting around it.
Right.
Going, how do we make socialism work in America?
Right. I don't think that's what's happening. I think what's actually happening, if I had to guess, is that you have a bunch of old people in a boardroom somewhere who are like, what are the kids nowadays like? They like all them streamers and TikTokers, those young streamers and young TikTokers. We got to get a bunch of young kids to do our movies for us. Okay. And so they get a bunch of young writers, a bunch of young guns who are cheap.
Bunch of Emma Viglins.
Yeah, there you go.
They get a room full of Emma Viglins.
They get a bunch of young writers who are cheaper, and also they think, well, be fresh blood. They speak the same way that these stupid, Zoomers and young millennials speak. So that's how, they'll come watch our dumb movies. They hire these people to write the new Disney movies, the new Marvel movies. First of all, these people, I think, are just inexperienced writers. You look at a lot of these writers, they have so little under their resume. It's kind of shocking that they're getting hired to these big budget movies, number one. But number two, I don't think it's that like the writer is sitting there in a room necessarily with like this conscious thought process, like, I want to, make everyone in the country like woke. I think it's that they themselves are so subsumed, so deep into their own worldview of wokeness that that's just what comes out when they write the story.
Yeah, I think everyone has a moral compass and they write according to that moral compass.
Yes.
But what's happening is like the progressive moral compass and the normie moral compass are getting radically divergent. Mm-hmm. So it's to the point where, I mean, a lot of progressives, they'll watch normie content and just perceive it as racist or sexist or homophobic.
Right.
And then their own content, which is super, super progressive, just comes off as strange to the normie.
Yeah. And I
So they
think
can't really relate to it.
I was kind of thinking about this, and I think that the woke worldview is not conducive to good storytelling. I think it's actually the antithesis of good storytelling.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, when we think of good storytelling, and it's funny because Tim actually like goes through this, and they totally don't listen or ignore it because they're dumb. Good storytelling is like you see a character, they're in like kind of a weak place or a bad place. They struggle, and then through the struggle, they achieve their goals, become stronger, change, become a better person, blah, 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 blah. And all these things are kind of like the antithesis of what the woke progressive story is. The idea that you necessarily need to, change yourself, right? to become stronger.
Acclimate to your environment. Learn from the people around you. Learn from your betters, your elders.
Yes.
Learn from tradition. All these things that are just anathema to the progressive worldview.
You're not perfect the way you are. You need to change to become a better you.
Yeah.
Right. The whole, and a lot of it is like the pulling yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. And then also there's, as you were saying, there's usually an older mentor, a traditional mentor. And this is why, like, to me, when I did my video a million years ago comparing the Star Wars sequels to Into the Spider-Verse nailed it perfectly. You have a young, new, diverse, protagonist Spider-Man, and the whole thing is he's, being mentored by the older Spider-Man who's lost his way, but the young Spider-Man Miles, he's like totally incompetent. He's so awful at being Spider-Man, and the fact that he's so awful at being Spider-Man and that he's so awkward in just life in general, that's what makes him endearing. And it just seems like the people that have this woke progressive mindset, they literally just cannot understand what makes characters endearing at all. And so they write all these characters to be the same, or they're all these like smug, smarmy, perfect, like horrible people that you just want to like throttle. You just want them to be away from you. There's nothing enjoyable about Captain Marvel as a character. There's nothing that you like about She-Hulk. There's nothing you like about any of these characters.
These writers have grown up on Twitter, Sitch. Do you think they can write an incompetent black character? Oh my God. What do you think that says about the black community?
Well, it's funny. I never even thought about it till you said this, but like, the people that wrote Into the Spider-Verse, they're both white. And actually, they didn't get any flack for, two white guys writing a black character. Right. And they made them. I think that a lot of the people, they don't understand that like flaws make characters relatable.
Yeah. Endearing even.
And endearing. Yes. Yeah. And they humanize them. And they want to make these like perfect cardboard cutout mouthpiece for their political agendas. And I think that's just their worldview. And that comes across in their writing, and it makes a lot of these stories awful.
Yeah, it definitely makes for less interesting stories as well. It's the flaws in the characters that we fall in love with. That's what's what makes it also interesting.
We know unequivocally that this movie, the Marvel's movie, only exists because of wokeness. Okay. And for Sam and anyone else to pretend like that's not the case, they don't understand what's going on here. Because why, like, can we imagine that in a world devoid of wokeness, that they would say, listen, let's take Captain Marvel, okay, a superhero that's like highly contentious that a lot of the audience doesn't like at all. Okay. We're going to take a superhero that a lot of people don't really like. We're going to give her a second movie that's all going to be about her. It's going to be about a little girl from a Disney Plus TV show that barely anyone saw. And then a secondary female superhero from another Disney Plus TV show who didn't even have her own Disney Plus TV show, but was part of like Wandaverse for, that no one else saw. Like who's sitting in a boardroom like, let's spend millions of dollars on two characters that no one cares about and throw them together with a female superhero that a lot of people don't like, and then give them their own movie. This is the worst idea in the history of human existence. And the only reason this got made was because they're like, we need a superhero movie with a bunch of strong women in it.
Yeah, strong women and no strong men around. We need to quarantine the strong men.
Yeah.
Doesn't Marvel don't most superhero movies skew male? That's the thing. I'm like, how can they make a movie that doesn't even have a strong male lead?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Who's
that's a
this
great
movie
point.
for?
Right. What's a great point? Because, they're talking about like, well, Barbie did very well, so this isn't indicative of going, woke going
Barbie
broke.
had a strong male lead in it.
And
Ryan Gosling.
That's what's so funny is like, even though, yes, Barbie was highly political and was like hyper woke, when you talk to people, so many people liked Ryan Gosling. They liked Ken so much. Like, they didn't really care about Barbie. Ken was really the draw of the movie.
Yeah. Yes. They needed a strong male lead,
Right.
obviously, in this movie, and
Right.
it didn't happen. So, well, maybe I didn't see the movie. Maybe it did happen.
I don't know if you need a strong male lead, but you need to have characters that people like to watch. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
That the reason why Disney puts out these things is to have a cultural revolution is absurd.
Yeah.
These movies are the antithesis of anything of like left-wing culture or
Yes.
whatnot.
Including Black Panther.
Of
this
any
is
culture,
just
to
a
be honest.
massive money grab.
Yep.
And the idea that this is, if there was such a thing of cultural Marxism, the idea that this would be it is just absurd.
We failed.
This is just and then like that.
I can't take it anymore. So how are these people so delusional?
Yeah.
What are we watching here?
Well, it's funny because he provides zero, there's no argument there. He just says it's not an example, like these movies are not an example of cultural Marxism or wokeness. And it's like, well, but what's your argument? How are the movies not an example of wokeness?
Well, as someone who's actually read Bob Iger's book, I can guarantee you 1,000% that he's doing it for social justice reasons.
He says this in his book.
He says it explicitly, page after page after page. This was our opportunity to help the Black community, to help women, to help the social justice movement. Yes.
Right.
Again and again and again. He talks about, I guess Ta-Nehisi Coates had written some of the comics, some of the Black Panther comics, and they were very interested in making a Black Panther movie that would be big for the Black community, bring the Black community into superheroes and how amazing that would be. And yeah, look, it's obvious. He says it explicitly. So
Yeah,
the idea that they don't get this, that they're blind to this, they look horrible. This looks terrible, Sam.
Yeah, but you
Jeez.
understand, he's a rich CEO, Adam. So he was lying when he said all that in his book. That was just for
he
good
did?
publicity. Yeah.
Oh, okay, look,
Yeah.
when somebody tells me they're doing something for a certain reason, I believe them.
Well, that's the argument that Sam puts forward is like, well, these can't be cultural Marxist movies because they make a lot of money, or they're to make money. So therefore they can't be cultural Marxism, which to me shows he doesn't understand what cultural Marxism is. And I mean, I think whenever I use the term and you say you shouldn't use that term, Sitch, I mean, I think there's legitimacy there because I think Tim would be better served saying progressive or woke, even though I know woke is so overused. Because even with Bob Iger and kind of what you're saying that he intentionally does this, like
He's not a Marxist. Hell no. He's a capitalist.
He's not a cultural Marxist. But here's the problem: is that you have like a bunch of like liberals who are old soft lefties who don't have any understanding of like what the new left is all about. And so they're like, oh, well, these are the new hip young left kids and they have some new hip young ideas. They have no clue that these people are all like socialists. And so they're like, oh, well, we'll hire them to go write the new, whatever Marvel's movie. And then they go do it. And because their worldview is just inculcated with that gobbledygook, obviously that's the movie that gets produced and it's just trash.
Yeah. Marxism is a big word. It's one of those words that really people zero in on. The thing about cultural Marxism is it really has nothing to do with Marxism. It's just that whole oppressor-oppressed narrative that is classically put towards economic class is fixed on race instead. So it's about
Race
it's
and
more
gender.
about racism and race and gender.
Yeah.
So, but it's not really about Marxism. And I think, look, if we ask Sam Seder or Emma Vigeland, what does cultural Marxism mean? They probably would think that it means something like Marxism or socialism that's being put forward at a cultural level, which is just not remotely what it means. So I think there might be some confusion about what the term actually means.
That fundamental premise is just absolute bunk. And then even if I was to accept his fundamental premise, which is that like the reason why Hollywood makes movies is to change culture overnight, you could just look at other movies that sometimes they do good, sometimes do bad. It doesn't have anything to do with what the content is in terms of like these things. It's just absurd. This guy's running such a scam. It's unbelievable.
So it's
how is this guy a Hollywood guy? Like, what the hell?
I know, it's ridiculous.
Every single movie that they go for Best Picture, it's like it's about the Holocaust. That's not about changing culture.
Yeah,
what the hell is he even talking about?
Well, and even like, for the past couple of years, even going back further in the past couple of years, you would see so many, I've seen interviews with screenwriters and producers, and they will explicitly say like, oh yeah, like there's a big thing to like try to find diverse movies now. Try to find kind of like woke movies. I mean, there's literally, we talked about this not that long ago. There was literally the Oscars, the Academy Awards put out that insane, guidelines of like, if you want to, be able to get an Oscar, you have to like meet the diversity requirements in the making of your film. Remember this?
Yes.
It was like you had to hire so many black people or non-white. It was basically, no, it wasn't even black people. It was, you had to hire so many non-white people to be involved with your production, or your story has to be about some quote non-white issue.
Yeah.
In order for you to even get an Academy Award. And so for Sam to just sit here and be completely ignorant that there is obviously a push going on in Hollywood for this, very woke progressive stuff is just completely detached from reality.
All that came out of Oscars So White. I don't know if you remember, but Oscar, one year, Oscars was basically targeted by the Twitterati for not being diverse enough. And they started a hashtag Oscars So White. And that sent Hollywood into a tailspin. What? Yeah. We're being called racist? And all of these policies came out of that. And you're right. They literally have a list. Basically, you have to have a certain quota of discrimination against white people in order to qualify for an Oscar now.
Yeah. Now, to address to address the other claim, which I think is true, that there are other reasons for why the Marvels did poorly that have nothing to do with politics. And actually, Emma and the faceless voice on Sam's show actually brought this up. I think these are fair points, or definitely part of the puzzle here, which is that, after Avengers Endgame, that felt like the kind of ending point for, I think, a lot of people in the audience, in terms of like watching these superhero movies. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's just like a decline after that, because it just felt like a nice resolution.
It was called Endgame.
Right. It's called Endgame. And then also, the Marvels movie itself, we have Captain Marvel, who's not really, even though her original movie did decently or did well, these other two characters were for Disney Plus TV shows that, very few people saw. And it seems like Disney is so desperate to just shove like their Disney Plus TV show stuff into the movie stuff. And it just doesn't work because they're just not familiar with it. And it's not
they don't
working.
Care.
Yeah. And I think I think that's fair. I think that's definitely reasons for why the Marvels is doing poorly. But to counter my own point, even with Endgame kind of being like the capstone to end the Marvel movies, I think if they were still making good Marvel movies after that, the interest would spark again. The interest would come right back. Right? If they're still just making, if the Ant-Man movies, the Thor movies, the Miss Marvel movies, all the movies coming after Endgame were just good storytelling, good movies, all the interest would come right back. Because like, oh, I love this stuff.
Well, I think even if they did a compelling story of Captain Marvel, it could sell.
Yeah.
They made a huge mistake by not making a strong male lead. I don't know why. They had that going on with Jude Law in the original one. I mean, obviously, not as strong as it could be, but they didn't have just devoid of any male characters.
I mean, I don't know. I don't. I mean, obviously, we're talking about superhero movies. Is a male audience, right? So yeah, maybe there does need to be, there has to be some kind of male character. You look at like the first Wonder Woman, and you had young Captain Kirk, and people liked his character a lot. So yeah, I mean that's definitely probably part of it. But I think even without a male lead, if it was just if Captain Marvel was just a well-written, compelling character that people liked, that's what you need. Like that's the basis of these stories. You need a well-liked character, and they just can't do it. They have to make these smug, smarmy, perfect from the get-go characters. It's so weird. Like you look at Tony Stark, right? And he's like a smug asshole. That's his character. He's a smug asshole.
Of course.
But then the whole point of the first movie is that he realizes that he's like a bad person and he needs to fix who he is, right? He has his own weapons that he's trying to sell to the Americans are being used by terrorists, and he gets a chest full of shrapnel from his own missile.
Right.
And that's when he realizes, oh, I'm harming the world, right? So he changes who he is as a person. Where's the Captain Marvel like realizing that she needs to change who she is as a person and become stronger or better or more moral?
Yeah, look, I didn't see the movie.
It wasn't there. It wasn't there. But that's the problem with all these movies. They just don't give these characters arcs for some reason. Their arc is that they become stronger. They're all Elsa. They all let it go and they really realize their true power inside.
Sure, it's trash. I'm just on the male character thing. I don't understand why you would want to give the like sisterhood of the traveling pants energy to your movie. Okay. It's like making a movie with one hand tied behind your back. If you're saying, look, we can't have any strong male characters in this movie, it's going to come off as superhero sleepover. It's like, it's wafting feminine energy here. It's the amount of estrogen coming off of this movie is just sending men away. What is the purpose of that? Right. Like if you had Captain Marvel and a guy on the poster, it would be, I'm telling you, it would be far more successful than it is. That's the main reason why this movie flopped.
I don't know if it's the main reason, but it's probably definitely hurt. I mean, you're right in terms of I saw the trailers and I definitely got superhero sleepover energy or superhero slumber party energy, which isn't exactly what you want when you're going into a superhero film.
The way that you make this work with 3 female leads is Charlie's Angels. But they're not going to do the sexy anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's true.
That's the way that you do it. And even then they have, I think Charlie's Angels had a male lead. I think it was Bill Murray in the remakes of.
He wasn't in it that much, I don't think. But
but it's a little bit, just sprinkle it in. We don't hate men here. Men exist and will like this movie.
Right.
It's okay to look at these sexy ladies.
You're right. It's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Like, because obviously these movies are completely devoid of sex appeal.
They are. Look, there's no,
yeah.
And look, I barely remember the original one, but wasn't there like a little bit of energy between Jude Law and
there
Captain
was,
Marvel?
but I mean, like Brie Larson is a very attractive woman. I know people don't like her personality, which is fine, but she's very hot. And it's like they put her in this like horrible flight suit outfit for the Captain Marvel character.
Yeah, because they want to avoid the male gaze. They're going for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants superhero movie, which is just okay if that's what you want to make, fine. But I don't think women like superhero movies in the same way that men do. You're never going to be able to. This is what I was talking about the you can basically sell anything that you want. Yeah. The manufacturing consent. They're like, look, we're just going to manufacture women who like superhero movies. Okay. Good luck with that. Let's see. Call me when your stock drops to $2 a share.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Obviously, superheroes are going to be a male audience, primarily a male audience forever.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like, they were not afraid to put sex appeal for Captain America. How many times they, show him
Oh,
shirtless.
of course. Of
make fun of
course.
his ass. That's America's ass. How many times did they do sex appeal stuff about Thor being super ripped? And then even in the original Avengers,
Well, that's how you get the
they
women
had-
to watch the male movies, right?
Exactly.
That's how you do it.
right. And in Barbie movie, you had Ken running around shirtless for half the movie, and he was ripped to all hell. And then in the original Avengers, you had Scarlett Johansson in her like skin tight, black outfit. So yeah, I mean, these movies are devoid of a lot of human emotions like romance and sex.
Yeah. Throw a little lust in there.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt.
Well, I mean, obviously it's difficult. You can't really do sex appeal when you shove a little kid in the movie. So maybe that's probably a mistake for them to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Captain America. A story of a young man, scrawny, weak, with all sorts of health ailments. But he so desperately believes in what his country stands for. He wants to be something bigger than himself. He wants to be part of something bigger than himself. He so desperately wants to serve his country that he tries lying to get into the military. I'm not kidding. I'm like, when conservatives complain about woke movies like this, I'm like, I agree. Y'all need to do the inverse too and cheer and celebrate for Captain America. Dude, I'm pointing the finger at all the people who are like, superhero movies are dumb, Tim. No way. I want you right now. I want you to get your kids to watch Captain America. And I'll break it down and tell you why. Steve Rogers in this movie, scrawny, weak,
Can't believe
gets
this.
beat up in a fight,
Scrawny,
but refuses to back down. Yo, that
That's what it
scene
needs to be
where he's in
about.
the alley and the dude punches him in the face and he's like, I can do this all day. Scrawny, weak guy, but strong-willed. Even though he wasn't the toughest. Even though he...
This is so amazing to me, Sitch, because they're making fun of this moral narrative that Tim is totally nailing. It's
Yeah.
totally he's totally nailing it. He's like the scrawny guy who doesn't feel like he can make a difference in the world, is given this giant opportunity to make a difference in the world.
Yes.
People empathize with that. People
Yes.
want to watch that. They want to emulate that. And you've got Sam Cedar and crew laughing at that. Laughing at that thing that so many people would want to do. What's
Yeah.
going on here?
Well, I think there's two interesting things. One is I think they hate Tim so much that they're just so biased against him that they can't even like process what he's saying or what his argument is. They just don't hear it. Like, and because Emma or one of them is about to say like, oh, Tim, he of course he keeps bringing up that he's scrawny and weak because Tim is scrawny and weak, and that's why that spoke to him. Like they don't even understand the moral intuition that you immediately latched onto as a storyteller, as a writer, and be like, okay, this is why this is appealing to people. To be powerless and to still have like that strength of character and to be given a shot to do right.
Yeah, that's all those people sitting in the movie theater thinking, look, I'm that powerless person. There's a chance for me.
Well, it's interesting because I think there's two types of characters. There's the normal character, Tony Stark, who they go on a character arc where they fix or they change some part of themselves to become better.
Right.
Emotionally, psychologically. And then you look at like Captain America, he didn't really do that because he becomes buff and everything, but like his character doesn't change. Like he, at the beginning of the movie, is Captain America's spirit. And then it's just, he's able to use that spirit to, his spirit matches his body once he becomes a super soldier. And that's that's the other type of character, which is someone called it the flat character arc, which is that it's a character who's so inspirational that like they don't change, but everyone around them changes because they want to be more like them.
Right. They drive the characters around them to have
become
story
better.
arcs. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, to become better because they want to emulate him. And I think that's a great character. That's one of my favorite characters. My favorite character in anime, Kamina from Gurren Lagann, is that character. Goku is a good example of that character, or especially in Dragon Ball. And that's what they were trying to do with Captain America. That's what they tried to do with Superman, during successes.
Yes.
And it's just interesting that, because they just disliked him so much, or because they just don't know anything about storytelling, because they don't care about it all, they just don't understand anything that he's talking about. It's all just nonsense to them.
Yeah, this is what I was saying about the divergent moral intuitions. I mean, you could be right. It could just be that they hate Tim so much that they're not even really thinking of it from a moral perspective. But it'd be interesting to talk to them about, what exactly is going on? What are the moral intuitions that are happening here?
Right.
I'm not sure that they're completely aware of it. I mean, everyone talked about the scene from the original Captain Marvel where she steals a guy's motorcycle. And the writers do it. So I guess he says to her, like, you'd be pretty if you smiled or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And for them, that was enough of a moral indiscretion for her to like punch him and steal his motorcycle, which, I mean, that's a completely different moral compass than most people are operating with.
Yeah.
And they immediately called it out. They immediately said, look, this is crazy. What's happening here?
No, it's a great point.
Yeah. So I think that's the problem. You get working on these movies with these people who just their moral compass is completely out of whack. It's like, look, they did a microaggression on me. I get to kill their whole family now. It's like a revenge fantasy or something.
Right.
I'm going, look, I don't know if you can sell this to the normie population. They might think that's a bit of an overreaction, and you seem insane, right?
Yes.
No, this will be a great movie. Look, Marvel's 3. Everyone will love it. All the kids will go see it.
He had health ailments.
Even though he didn't take his beanie off.
Yeah. That's the message you want kids to have. And he wants to join the military. Not that I think the military is doing all that well today.
Look at my gun and
Point
sword
was,
behind me.
He was
I
patriotic.
could do
He
it
believed in
too.
his country. He believed in family and community. Okay. And even though he wasn't the...
Sure, man.
Wow.
Wow, he like... I wish he just had it might be a little bit feel less like punching down if he had 5% more self-awareness, like of why he's so emotionally attached to the scrawny, weak Captain America.
Right.
He leaves out the part that like 30.
Yeah, so sad.
Do you like that Emma is talking about someone else's lack of self-awareness?
Oh, I know. The irony is just off the charts here.
I know.
And they don't understand the moral. They don't understand the moral narrative at all.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Sad.
Becomes super buff.
Some people
the
lie.
most Jack Eye in the entire. He's a super soldier.
Yeah, and he's like that could happen to me too.
But also, I should also say, is very similar to the story of the Bourne Identity as well. I should also say, and just about every other movie of that ilk.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what the hell Sam Seder is talking about.
The Bourne Identity.
The Captain America story is the same as the Bourne Identity or any other action movie. No, it's not. What
was there amnesia in Captain America that I'm missing or something?
It wasn't the Bourne Identity. It's been a while since I've seen the Bourne Identity. Wasn't he was like a super assassin guy?
Right. Yes.
That they're trying to take out for some reason.
Yes, but it starts off with him having amnesia. He doesn't know who he is.
Right. But he doesn't start off as like a scrawny weakling known for his strength of character who becomes, some kind of massive physical hero or something. That's not the Bourne. That is not the standard action hero thing. The standard action hero thing is, you have your Mission Impossible or your John Wick, the character who like has been trained all his life to be the super, badass, and then they have to go, do something, right? It's baffling to me, that just shows that Sam has no clue what he's talking about. I don't even know why he comments on anything related to movies. He's obviously completely out of his wheelhouse here. But
yeah.
So it's just fascinating that they, as you said, I think it is more than they just don't like Tim. I think they literally just don't. I think like the people that write these terrible woke movies, they just don't understand what makes characters good or compelling and why people like Captain America or other characters like that.
But part of it is probably that they, in their moral framework, they see a character like Captain America as idolizing straight white males. That's the way that they see it.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a great point.
So they just can't see the moral narrative clearly as other people do.
Right.
Look, I do. It's partly a cultural reason. I think conservatives have a better understanding of how liberals and progressives think just because they're completely inundated with progressive media, so they have a window into it, and conservative media that's dedicated strictly to conservatism is kind of the Fox News off in left field that progressives can go their whole lives avoiding. So
Right.
a lot of these writers don't really see it, and when they do see it, they see it as immoral. But I do think writing scripts, you're going to get better material from people who understand both perspectives, and that's going to tend to be conservatives, and conservatives are definitely on the outs as far as Hollywood goes. So I think that's part of the struggle here as well.
I mean, maybe. I think it's, I'm sure if you were to look at, you do a survey of like people that write fiction, it's probably going to be overwhelmingly left wing slanted, like 75%. I just pull that number out of thin air, and I'd be confident with that. Just because more of like the artistic types tend to skew that way. But I think the difference is that, a lot of the people, even though it's left-wing skew, they were still operating under the American ideas of liberalism and the hero's journey and all of these things. And the kind of the woke progressive generation is kind of taught that all those things are repressive and terrible.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're trying to throw all that stuff away and do their like OC, do not steal, hyper idealized headcanon character who's a smug, smarmy, badass, woman, and just people just look at this character and they don't like it. So
Cool. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
that's it.
Hi, you just listened to a Sitch and Adam recorded video. That's right, we're doing Monday through Friday deep dive recorded videos now. And of course, we're still doing our live streams. Our live streams are on Sunday and Tuesday starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And you can super chat us, or you can join the channel. Subscribe to this channel right here to watch the live show or watch more of our awesome deep dive videos.